Hey, this is Skipan. So I originally wanted to do a stream talking about kind of YouTube, the direction that I want to go with this channel, maybe uh, what you could do in the modern day to get started with the YouTube channel, different things like that, and answer questions. But with Apple announcing a new iPad Pro as well as like a standard iPad, and there was a GPD update as well, I wanted to kind of talk about some of those more news-like topics. So just to get started with the iPad, what initially struck me about the standard iPad was the folio. It kind of looks like the things that you could get from Logitech's cases that I've talked about on the channel with the hinge and the keyboard, and kind of like a more standard and traditional style of keyboard with the function row and everything like that. And let me move this over here so that it's in the direction I'm looking at. But I think almost over the Pro, this is the iPad that interested me the most with the current announcements. Part of it is just because of the keyboard case, because I like this form factor. But I think it actually improves a lot of different things that are a little bit annoying about iPads, like the camera being up top here for different like streaming or conference calling, stuff like that. And having that more updated form factor, I think the A14 is probably more than good enough for most people's needs as like 2D digital art and stuff like that. But what's not apparent at the beginning is the pencil, how they're using the first generation Apple Pencil, and you need an adapter to go from USB-C to Lightning, which really seems like I mean, it's a cost saving measure, but it's unfortunate. I think if this had the second gen Apple Pencil, it would have been a lot easier to recommend, maybe. Um, it seems like, it'd be well positioned for students, and maybe if you're more a hobbyist or professional, iPad Air might be a little bit better. Hopefully, they come out with an updated iPad Air with this kind of folio design and some of this functionality with like the function row keys. But it's kind of a weird place. It's hard to recommend, but also I like some of the improvements, and I really like this kind of keyboard for mobile devices. I don't know how if the hinge is sturdy, like it kind of looks similar to Logitech's offerings, but if it's not sturdy, then it might not be good for drawing. I don't think I'm going to be picking one of these up, but I will at least go test it out at a store and see kind of if it would work for digital art or not. And of course, we have the iPad Pro with the M2 chip. It seems like not too much has changed as far as the way that you could use it. Of course, the addition of DaVinci Resolve and other more professional apps coming to iPad is pretty appealing to me. And I could see a workflow where I do some lighter stuff, like say editing YouTube videos on an iPad. But what still gets me, and I think there's a lot of improvements, there's a lot of like interesting looking things, but if you're going to do heavy workloads, professional workloads, having one USB-C port and having very, very expensive storage is still a deal breaker for me, even with the M1 12.9-inch iPad Pro that I have. It really often feels like a glorified typewriter or like streaming device. Because the image, I mean, the screen, the image that you get off of it is really nice. And sometimes I use it as like a reference monitor for video editing. And of course, for drawing, it's very nice, but it could be a little bit overkill in certain situations. So even with the M2 chip, even with more pro level kind of apps and functionality coming with resizing windows, and we've had the ability to plug it into a screen for a long time now. But I think the it's not even the form factor. You know, the I/O, other things like that, where you can't really push it to the limits of the M2, let alone I think the M1 in many cases, for many workloads, at least for me. I'm sure that there's plenty of people that do take advantage of it for professional work, but I still kind of am frustrated by the their lack of flex, or not the lack of flexibility necessarily, but just it feels a little too middle of the road, where what's so nice about the Mini is that it's clearly positioned at one end of the spectrum. So when I want to go out on the go, when my workload is very light, and I just want to sketch and draw and take notes, I know I'm going to take the Mini. Whereas the 12.9-inch iPad Pro, I don't always know what to do with it when I have it. When I go out, sometimes it's like too big, too bulky, and I still can't get the work that I want done. Or sometimes it's very nice when I'm trying to do something that is kind of not too heavy of a workload, but also something that's still intense, something that's still somewhat professional. So, maybe the next one will improve some of the functionality, but right now I'm still a little skeptic. I mean, this was nice, the electromagnetic signal that will give you kind of a preview of where you're going to draw. I'm very used to this from the like Wacoms and other drawing tablets I've used in the past. But I guess I've become used to the style that, since I've been drawing on the iPad for the most part for several years now, I've gotten used to not having that little preview. And it doesn't really affect my work, but it is a nice thing to have. But I don't think I'm going to upgrade pretty much just for this feature. Like I said, I can't even take advantage of the M1 chip as it is, so M2 is not really going to benefit me. And this is one of the only features that really seems interesting or that could be beneficial for me, but you never know. Maybe I'll just feel compelled to get one and try to see if there are any advancements, but right now I don't have an intention of picking one up. Yeah, like I said, I mean, the standard iPad is almost more appealing, but I wish it had even maybe like a second gen Apple Pencil version 2 where it was USB-C. And I could see that being useful for a lot of different purposes, like you could charge it just off of USB-C, or maybe you can kind of like tap into it somehow. Some developers could go and alter different things if it had a USB-C port, but the Apple Pencil on this standard iPad is very disappointing. But if you have any questions about this, let me know. And in a little bit, I'm going to move on to talk about GPD, and then just wanted to have like a casual conversation about YouTube and other things like that. I also like this size, I think, a little bit better. One thing, using the M1 iPad Pro 12.9-inch for, I don't know what, I think over a year now. The size with a case like this hinge case, but from Logitech, can be very awkward to use on the train or just even on your lap. Like, it doesn't function like a traditional laptop would in many ways. And sometimes that's the kind of functionality that I want. Sometimes I want more of a tablet. And this seems to bridge the gap maybe a little bit better. And I think the same thing kind of goes for the new iPad Pro. If the 11-inch had maybe a nicer screen, or, was changed, and if it had more kind of hardware changes to it, it would have been interesting for me, but as it is, I don't really see myself picking one up right now. But also, when it comes to GPD, I've talked about the WinMax 2021 on the channel before, and I've been using this a lot lately for even editing videos and doing like work at home, and it's been pretty nice. As I'm changing my setup, I don't always have everything kind of in place when I want it, so having something like this where I could just plug in like a dongle like this and get started has been a really nice experience. And it seems like orders are starting to ship now. There were some delays between COVID scares at like the office or around the area that they're, I guess, not necessarily making the products, but gathering them and then shipping them to users. But it is slightly delayed, it seems. Some users might have theirs at the end of October, and if not, in sometime in November. And something I was thinking about was this seems to be a trend for GPD with their crowdfunding campaigns, is that they say they'll be delivering in October usually. I think they start, at least for the WinMax, it's been, they start their campaign maybe in August, it ends in September, and they say that they're going to deliver in October. But if they under-promised and over-delivered, I think a lot more users would be satisfied, especially those that are new to it. If you found the GPD Win Max from a channel like mine and it seemed really interesting and you participated in the crowdfunding for the first time and it took a month, like an extra month or 2 months extra, I could see it being very disappointing. So if they pushed the release date or the like estimated ship date to say December, it would still line up with like a holiday season if you happen to buy it for that. Because already October is past like new school season, so delivering in October, I guess there's a lot of like tech announcements at the time, but if you already backed the campaign, it doesn't really apply. So I could see a slightly better system where they promise to deliver a few months out, but then they deliver it faster and more people are satisfied with that. But for my use, it's not the biggest deal. It just means that maybe I won't be able to kind of get my hands on it and review it sooner. But with something like this, I do want to take my time because it is a product that has been super useful in my day-to-day life. And this iteration seems like it does have significant improvements over even the 2021 version. I think the other thing that seems, I'm not sure if they've clarified this or not, but I didn't find anything in a quick search, but I don't think you get your product based on the order like that they were reserved. Hey, thank you so much. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I was talking about iPads earlier and now kind of chatting about the GPD, and I'll move on to talking about kind of YouTube channels and the direction I want to go in and other things like that. But if GPD, I don't believe that they will specifically ship to each individual user based on the order that they reserved it. So the first person that backed the campaign, I don't think is going to be the first person that gets hands-on with the unit. It's probably more of a logistics thing. They just send, a big crate or pallet full of them to certain countries based on, who backed it and the resellers that are going to get them. I'm not sure exactly what the process is, but that kind of like randomness and seeing that some people get the device and other people don't. I wonder if I don't think anyone's received their devices yet, but if there's a little bit more clarity and kind of transparency, or maybe they're transparent with it, but more clarity, it would be nicer. I would appreciate that because I'm really looking forward to this device. It seems like something that is super powerful for the type of work that I do and the things that I'm interested in from devices like this. And I'd really like to make a video about it. So anyways, this is something that as soon as I get it, I'll probably do a stream now that I'm kind of setting up more for faster video productions, I guess you could say. And I can kind of cover my initial impressions with a stream like that or a short video and then really dive into it. But if anyone has questions on the GPD, I'd be happy to talk about that now. And then I'll just kind of give some thoughts on YouTube and other things that I have planned. Also, one thing that I didn't pick up was the active stylus pen. I got the fully spec'd WinMax 2 with LTE, thinking that that LTE option seems like it could be, I mean, definitely a game changer for some people. I don't know how much of a game changer for me, but at least I could see myself taking advantage of that LTE for a variety of different applications. And the screen does have kind of well, it can use an active stylus. I think it's more of a generic system, so maybe you don't really need GPD's specific pen. I'm going to see if any of the pens that I have will work with it first. And also, it seems like each of the items that you ordered would be delivered separately, so maybe I would get the pen first without the actual device, or I'd get the device and not have the pen, and that seemed kind of inconvenient, so I decided not to order it now, and maybe I'll pick it up later. But it is interesting to see that this kind of device has a capacitive screen for a pen. Unfortunately, it doesn't, just like the 2021 model, it just kind of is a clamshell. If this could like spin around so that you had it almost like a slate, I think for me it would be maybe one of like the only devices that I need. I might be able to ditch the iPad at that point. But I don't really like the idea of kind of like drawing like this. I mean, maybe on the train for taking notes, or maybe in class, because it is still a handheld device. It's not like that heavy, I guess slightly heavier than maybe like the iPad Pro 12.9, and the iPad Pro with a case, it might be kind of like an equivalent size and weight. So I could see myself doing it, but it doesn't seem like the healthiest option. It doesn't seem like the best option necessarily, but I won't know until I try it out. But of course, you know, any kind of campaign like this, I'm sure that they're a small company, is going to be extremely difficult, the logistics and everything on it, but they've been doing it for a long time now, and that lack of clarity and kind of, it seems like a consistency of delay. It's not a substantial delay, like you still get the product and they still ship it within what I would say is a reasonable time frame. It's just that they're telling you that it will be there maybe in a faster time frame that then is reasonable in some circumstances, especially now with the way that shipping and all is. So I could definitely see someone who tries to get these for the first time being frustrated with that. And even if you've been backing the campaigns for a long time, it's just a little frustrating to have to wait for a product you're excited about that you already paid for, stuff like that. But I guess that's it, like for the news portions of the things that I wanted to talk about that I found out about recently. And what I wanted to talk about was just like my experience on YouTube, as I've started to change kind of my approach for filming videos and the way that I want to approach production of them and releasing them, all that kind of stuff. Between different channels, not just this channel, but other channels that I've worked on, other channels that I'm running at the moment. If you include live streams, stuff like that, I've done over 100 videos. So I want to make a video where I actually talk about that experience maybe when this channel starts to get close to 100 videos, I'll actually do a more proper version of that. But I think 10, and then another kind of similar thing was 10 years ago, I was really into watching YouTube videos, learning about drawing and photography and all this other kind of stuff. And I really regret not starting my channel then. And for a long time, I was like an armchair enthusiast, I guess you could say, where I thought, oh, if I got this equipment, I could do it like this. And it was a lot of fun to think about it. But really, I think the reason why I didn't start and a lot of people don't start is because it's actually hard to make that next step. It's hard to kind of commit to something, and it's a lot easier and a lot more fun to just kind of think about it conceptually. And I want to try to help people that are kind of on the fence like that clearly have an interest and could provide a lot of value for their community, but don't take the next step. Because even after I got started with video production, so my background in 2012, I was much more into photography, stills photography, and I did that for a long time. I've done it for like over 10 years now, and I only got started with video production maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And even then it was a slow transition, but I always thought, oh, when I get this camera, when I get this setup, when I get, this topic that I want to talk about, I'll start it. And it really makes you unprepared for when you actually do have something to talk about. So if you don't have a body of work, if you don't have experience, and even say, if you have the experience, if you know what you want to talk about, maybe it's so many more skills than you anticipate at first. Being able to talk to the camera, I've experimented with different ways. I'm not very good at that. It's taken me a lot of time and effort and work to kind of overcome that hurdle and find a workflow and production like format that works for me. I'm still not there, and that's why I'm like constantly changing the way I do things. But I think you don't know until you actually get started, is the point that I'm trying to make with this. And it's easy to push it back, and I think it kind of like robs a lot of people of an opportunity where when they actually do have something really important to say, like a tutorial or a topic about their craft, and it might not come across in the best way because they don't have the experience, or they don't have the background, the body of work for people to, I guess, in a way, trust what they're saying, or be interested in what they're saying. So one of the things that making over 100 videos has taught me is like, it's important to just put stuff out there and learn from it. That the way that you're actually going to grow is by having actual experience like that. And so I tested out a lot of different formats. If you go back to some of the first videos, I was only doing voiceovers. So I would typically have a script. I would read the script into either a recording device or directly onto my computer, and then put a lot of footage on top of that to kind of like show descriptive elements of what I was talking about. But the thing I noticed, or the thing I realized very quickly, was it's super time consuming to have to film all that B-roll and kind of each descriptive element. So if you talk about like the headphone jack, you gotta film the headphone jack. If you talk about pen pressure, you gotta film something like that. At some point I did kind of gather a library of footage that I could reuse if I felt it was appropriate. But even that, it takes a lot of time and effort. And so I moved more to the talking head portion because it allows me to save a little bit of time. But long story short, after needing to set up my filming equipment every single time I wanted to record. That was a huge barrier to entry and a lot of friction for me to get started actually filming. So I have a long list of ideas, and sorry. I have a long list of ideas, but it's hard for me to get through all of that list because there's a lot of friction to actually get started filming. So I've decided to kind of change to more of a setup that's already in place that hopefully I could just sit down and press record, which will make the whole process a lot smoother and faster. So let me answer this question too. A 14-inch iPad, I don't know. I mean, the 12.9 is already pretty big. Let me see if I have... I don't think I have my MacBook is not here right now. But actually, I still have the Intel 12-inch MacBook. And I think now with M1, I can see Apple maybe at some point bridging the gap between all of their devices with something like the 12-inch MacBook with an M2, M3, whatever, in the future processor they want to use on it, and having a form factor that is like half iPad, half MacBook. Is more what I see versus larger and larger iPads. Because if you're completely in the Apple ecosystem maybe, and you're using, say, the 12.9-inch iPad Pro, and you want a bigger screen, you could get one of their like cinema displays. And I think a lot of people would be satisfied with that. So you have something that's, reasonably portable, but then it's still a very nice experience at home. And they show that off a lot in their marketing and stuff. And I think they want people, or they assume people will do that. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate the comment. And, I just want to work out. I think another thing that live streams will help me kind of communicate better, more naturally and smoothly, and also work through these ideas and concepts, because sometimes I could spend a lot of time on a script. I've been a very perfectionist person ever since I was younger, and that was one of the hurdles that I had to overcome with YouTube as well, because I would think, oh yeah, I said that I can say this in a better way, and maybe I would re-record it or try to like smooth it over, try to make the footage look better. And I think one of the things that has been frustrating about YouTube, I think the platform itself is very unique even today. It allows people to have access to so many viewers, so many people that otherwise wouldn't see your work, wouldn't hear your voice. And that's such a special thing. And out of all the places as a creator, it's probably the least like frustrating, or I don't know what to say exactly, but I guess you could flip it around and be a little bit more positive and say it's the most rewarding as a creator maybe on this platform. At least for me, it feels like it makes the most sense. But the thing that has been frustrating is that a lot of people are rewarded for being first, being fast, and bringing something kind of showing up early, or I guess showing up early is a different concept, but like the people that show up first are rewarded in the long term. And I think that's the problem that I have with it. I think it's okay for someone that shows up early to be rewarded, at least in the short term, but often the first videos, at least of a reasonable quality, or from more known channels, those videos will go further than, say, someone that comes in after a month, 2 months of using a product and really giving a detailed look into it. Those people don't necessarily get surfaced as much on like the homepage. Their videos might not go as far. So I think that's been frustrating. It leads to more of like this race to the bottom mentality where you got to be first. You're just going to go through the talking points, the specs, and it might not actually be helpful to the people that are trying to buy the product or trying to I guess when it comes to like tutorials and stuff like that, it could be a little bit more like evergreen where time isn't necessarily a factor, but in some cases it could be if there's a new function for software. Like I've done videos on Clip Studio Paint new functions, and you know, the faster you do it, maybe you miss something, maybe it's not the most comprehensive video. And so I think that's one of the things that's unfortunate as someone that wants to make more kind of comprehensive videos. And that's another reason why I think I want to move to this kind of setup where things are already in place and I'm ready to record more at a moment's notice, because it allows me to still maybe have some like integrity of the work and put a lot of time and effort into thinking about the product or technique or tutorial, but also not spend so much time and effort trying to record. So there are only between work and other things of life that there are only certain days that I can record a video. And if I miss those days because I don't have my script ready, I don't feel good enough, you know, there's some issue, I might have to push it to next week. And that could cost me a lot as far as the system. The cheap mic recommendation, I've been using the, was it? Let me double check the name. I've been using the Rode Video Micro for a long time, and it serves my purposes for the most part, but now that I think I'm going to have a more like established setup, I probably will look into a slightly better mic, something more high quality, and I could take advantage of it for other work situations, but most of my video production doesn't involve like super high-end audio, so right now it's been fine. It's not a USB mic, but for the most part you could take advantage of it if you just have a 3.5mm headphone jack. But I think it's always like a trade-off that if you wait too long, if you try to go too deep, then it probably doesn't help people that much, and it doesn't help you either. But if you're too shallow and you don't, especially like commenting on things that maybe you're not even familiar with, especially when it comes to iPads, I know that there's a lot of channels that will comment on like the effectiveness of the Apple Pencil or different things like that. And the creators don't necessarily have experience with drawing and other stuff like that, but they're very influential, so it can affect a user's decision. And that's tough, you know? And a lot of the reasons why I wanted to start this channel is to share my experience, because I think there's a lot of value in from all the different products I've tested and tried, and trying to kind of like help people cut down their actual time doing the same thing, if that makes sense. No, not at all. It's very casual stream. I'm trying to just work through some ideas, I guess, you know, and it helps to have like a soundboard. And, you know, I do want to talk about more stuff on the channel that is about making YouTube videos. So stuff like that, mic recommendations is very much on topic, I think. And I think another thing that has been difficult, at least with this, is that I think as many people could assume, Japanese apartments are very small, and my working space is a lot smaller than you would probably expect. I'm gonna have to measure it when I do a proper video on like this new setup after I've kind of refined it over time, but I wanted something that makes sense for both work and video, and that's tough. That I think if it was only video, I could set it up in a way that makes sense, but I also need to work in this space, and that creates a lot of kind of challenges. And I didn't want to just rush into something. I didn't want to just pick up a bunch of furniture and other stuff. I didn't even know how long I was going to be in this space, but now it's more clear that I'm going to be here for longer time, so I'm more open to investing in different equipment and furniture. So that was also kind of a hurdle. But even this setup, which I'm using kind of like, it's not a wall mounted setup because I also can't drill into the walls or anything, but it's like a rail system. It's a really interesting thing that I found online, but I picked up a few accessories for it, and I'm already thinking, oh, it's, I thought this was going to be the perfect solution, because right now I have my mic just above here. I'll bring it down just a little bit so you guys can see. And then it's kind of on a VESA monitor arm mount, and I have a top-down camera, so I have my face cam, I have a top-down camera, and I have another camera off to the side here actually. And after only making one video, I'm already thinking I gotta change this. So even having made a lot of videos here on YouTube and doing a lot of video production in general, and thinking that I would know what would suit me, I already want to make changes right away after just using it one time. So I think the important thing is to do it, ship it, publish it, and then see what you could do better. My problem as a perfectionist is I don't really get to the end step. I will do it, not be satisfied with it, try to redo it, spend a lot of time, get very frustrated, and it kind of creates a mess. And that's something that's difficult to overcome for me, and I'm sure for other people as well. It's not a wall rail. It's kind of like, I'm sure if you look online, and I was inspired by many YouTube videos where people have like a pole mounted to their desk, and then VESA arms or like different arms coming off of it, and putting camera equipment, monitors, laptop stands on it, like a desk video setup or whatever. And very inspired by that, but a lot of them are just kind of, I don't know, not that appealing to me even visually. So I found a solution that is a little bit more me, I think, that I enjoy at least like looking at, because again, I'm going to be working here, not just filming. If this was a separate room where it was only for filming, maybe I'd be okay compromising on something else. But I think I'm going to slowly build this out to something more practical and functional for me, for both work and videos. And you learn a lot just by doing it. Like I said, that when I first picked this up, I had the camera a little bit closer, because the other thing that's going to make my production a lot faster, and it's been in a few of my videos, but I can't always do it because I don't always have the time, is I could, talk about a product like this on camera, and then I have a top-down camera and maybe another angle if I want to cut in with that. So I think it'll cut maybe 2 days out of my production time where I have to film, kind of excessive B-roll, I guess you could say, just to like describe a product, even though I really do enjoy the filming process and trying to make something that is visually like striking. I guess it can be a little overkill for YouTube in a sense, that I didn't want to enter that race to the bottom mentality where I want to be first. But also, I do think at least for me now, I want to have kind of like a more reasonable production. Because the more time it takes me to do it, actually, I feel like the less I'm interested in it as well. The more time I spend working on it, the more frustrating it can become. So at least for me as a creator, I'd rather push it out there faster, learn from it, and grow, instead of like stewing with it. And I think these things change as well, though, that I started doing very like video essay style things, and I'm doing a lot of video essays on a different channel that I'm working on. But now for this channel, I want to have maybe more of a standard like review process. And I think these ideals change over time as well. So that's something else that I've been finding out, that if I had started YouTube in 2012, I think it would have been completely different. The way that I approached it, what I talked about, it would change and evolve over time. So I think you just got to do it. Also, that just doing it is not necessarily the right thing. It's, I guess, committing to something that you think could work, trying it out, and then having the clarity to assess whether it is working for you or for your audience or not, and being able to either double down on it if it is, or reassess, kind of change things and have a new approach. That I think I've been frustrated for a long time because I haven't been doing that. I haven't been looking and saying, well, what works, what doesn't work. All right, now I'm starting to do it and I'm feeling a lot better. But there's a long time where I was trying to do something with an old system that worked for me at a certain time, and it no longer works for me now. But it was the thing that I was doing for a long time, so it was natural for me to continue to do it. But I only grew more and more frustrated with the process. So it's difficult to kind of like realize you're in the middle of that. And also, I think the channel, the things I'm talking about, the things I'm interested in do change over time. And while I do still draw sometimes or occasionally, and I think streaming could be a much a good enabler for me to draw, something actually to like have me show up on certain days and actually do the thing. And that's something that I do want to try to like see if it fits into my schedule or not. But just being open to trying something, seeing how it goes, and then applying what you learned from that to the next project. And even when it comes to drawings, I've been drawing for a lot longer than I've been doing other art forms, and kind of maybe at my peak interest, I would redo things over and over, or maybe not the peak interest, because that's not true, but at the time I was most passionate about it, maybe I would redo the same thing over and over and over again, trying to perfect it, when really it's a tough pill to swallow. But just moving on and applying what I learned from it would have been probably, it would have put me in a much better position the next time and the next time and the next time. So it might feel safe and comfortable to just refine what you already have, because it's scary to think, well, what's the next thing? Am I going to be able to do something better next time? Is it going to be worse? But the only way you're going to improve is by finishing it, moving on, and especially assessing what worked and what didn't. And it's easy to say, and it's difficult to apply. So you also can't be too hard on yourself with it, because it's been on my mind. I've been thinking about it, talking about it with friends and family, but difficult for me to apply to my actual channel and process. And another thing that when I especially got started, all right, let me answer your question as well. Yeah, I mean, I think it's so difficult to have perspective on yourself, right? That you can look at someone else's artwork and maybe with a more critical eye, or help them, say the anatomy is a little bit off, maybe you should study that more. You can more objectively view other people's work, but your own work, you will notice things that other people will never notice. And I think there's value in having something that's very perfect for, say, like a movie or fine art. But I think I'm learning more and more that not everything has to be that things can be different levels of effort and kind of production, or different levels of like appropriate amounts of time and effort put into it, I guess you could say. Even if you think about like comics and manga that are published weekly, I think a lot of people, and this is an issue that I definitely had, is that you view it and you think, wow, this is like amazing, this is like the top of the top. But for the person making it, it's a weekly thing. It can't be perfect. Maybe sometimes certain chapters, certain frames are better than others because they do have value to the story and the characters, but as a whole, it's not a perfect medium, but a lot of people view it as perfection. So it kind of creates this rift that's difficult as like a fan, you know? And it's that you could say the same thing with YouTube as well, that the channels that I like, and even beyond YouTube, just the things that influence me to do these kinds of things are very high levels of production. And so it makes me feel like I also have to be at the same level just to play. But I don't think it's true anymore. And you can determine how much time you think is necessary or appropriate, and it's worth sticking to that maybe. That if you think a drawing, say practice sketch, say even something that you're gonna like post online or whatever, if you think it deserves a certain amount of time, you should try to stick to that and not go over or under, and that will kind of facilitate more learning and also more work. If you think something's going to take you 40 minutes and it takes you, 6 hours, it's probably not a good process, because you could have made, 8 or so drawings, depending. I mean, give or take, you could make 8 drawings in the same time that it took you to make one when you set out to make it for 40 minutes, but it took you 6 hours. And kind of the same thing with like, if you set out to make a YouTube video, but then you put in as much time as like a short film, what you started with and what you ended with are very different. And it can be good for experimenting, but not when you're trying to, I guess, be consistent, or when you're trying to do something more professionally, I guess. The other thing that's interesting about YouTube is the weekly schedule that so many people are on. I think it is beneficial, and it enables you to make more work. And I've been talking about how important it is to make more work, but it does also slowly creep into, I have to be there faster, sooner, I have to cut more corners, all this kind of stuff. And I've experienced that over the years as well, that sometimes I try to make videos weekly, sometimes I don't. And I still haven't found the right balance for me. And again, it changes over time. That I think if you're just starting out, maybe weekly is a great way for you to learn a lot more about video editing, a lot more about the system, all that. But then maybe there's a more appropriate kind of format for you as you settle into it. And hopefully I'm starting to settle into more of like a system with this channel, at least. But I definitely found that, and it's okay to change, but my ideals when I started, I think I still have similar ideals, but doing it for, I think, almost 3 years on and off now, I slowly creeped in a direction that was not what I wanted, and that also caused a lot of friction and frustration. That some of my ideals have changed, some of it is different. I mean, some of them have changed, some of them have remained the same. But at different times, I saw myself getting farther away from that and kind of compromising what I thought I wanted to do, or compromising the styles and the things that I hold to like higher values. And I think it's okay, it's okay to push the boundaries, assess, see how you feel about it, come back, do different things. But if you're compromising it over and over again without really thinking about the results, it could lead to that kind of frustration, burnout, different negative connotations. But I do have a lot to talk about on this topic, and I do want to start to make videos about making YouTube videos. because I guess it's the thing that I'm like passionate about in a sense now, that I'm still passionate about drawing, but the thing I'm doing more is video editing. And even I've been thinking about doing um, photography tutorials for artists, which is something that I think is important, that because I am kind of multidisciplinary in that sense, that I've done many different art forms, I can see some of the value in teaching from one perspective, like having the perspective of a 2D artist that added photography to my skill set. Trying to teach from that perspective, I think, could be very valuable. And it's something I've been meaning to get started now for quite some time, but I haven't found, or I found plenty of ideas, I just haven't gone through with it. Like, that's kind of the thing. The ideas are easy, but actually shipping the work is difficult. Yeah. And I have found it difficult as well. I think, especially with the iPad reviews, because I use it for so many different things that I tried to cram it all into one video, and I think it's difficult. It was definitely difficult for me to make, to find the flow of it, to find the way to do it. But I think it's also difficult for people to absorb the information in a way that's like useful to them. So I can see myself splitting things up and doing it in a way where it's more targeted. So, you know, for the 2D artists, this is the things that I think are beneficial, not beneficial. Then for like the photographer, it's this. For the videographer, it's that. And or maybe, you know, mixing and matching depending on how relevant it is, but trying to just cover the whole thing has been difficult for me as well. But it's kind of like, it's the thing that people tend to do. They tend not to separate it. They tend to cram it all into one. And so I felt the pressure to also do the same thing, I guess. I'm sure there's plenty of people that do separate it, but at least from what I've seen, I see people consolidating all their thoughts into one video. And I also want to do more work with different people. I really enjoyed the interview with Eric, talking about a game, also, you know, about Japanese culture and learning Japanese. So I think there's a lot of directions I could go with this channel. There's a lot of things I want to do. But sometimes having so much that you want to do makes it difficult to choose a direction, makes it difficult to choose like kind of a format, or even just a single video, even from a very small perspective. I look at the things that I want to talk about. Most of them aren't like time sensitive. They're more just either products that have been out for a long time or something that's more niche. So I don't think it really matters about the time or their techniques or their like concepts. So not having that time pressure or kind of like fire under your feet could also be, it could be beneficial or also make things more challenging. Like when a new product comes out, I do push myself, and I know it's possible for me to turn around a video in like 24 hours. But like I said, I was talking about earlier, I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing or not. That using something for 24 hours and talking about it will get you more views, will get more eyes on your work, more people coming to the channel, but I don't know how beneficial it is if your goal is to try to help people and kind of educate, I guess. That YouTube blurs the lines on kind of that education and learning about a product and entertainment. That I definitely enjoy watching reviews from people on products that I never intend to buy. For some reason, I just find it entertaining. I like the format. And kind of like, I guess I've always been interested in tech and equipment, whether it's for cameras or drawing or computers. And so I like to stay up to date. But I do find that sometimes you don't get as deep, or at least from like smaller creators. If you have a big channel with a lot of people helping you, um, you could go deeper because you have that kind of like a team. So each person can dedicate more time to it. Whereas if you're by yourself, you can only dedicate a certain amount of time to it because you have to kind of do the talking, do the filming, editing, you know, in my case, sometimes drawing, other stuff like that. And I think there are a lot of benefits for doing everything yourself because it's kind of your vision and you get to maintain that throughout the whole production. But it's also very challenging and I think a huge barrier to entry for a lot of people because the level of quality on YouTube has only gone up as kind of cameras get more accessible, high quality cameras get more accessible, high quality audio, editing techniques, everything kind of is democratized. So back in 2012, if I had started, the barrier to entry was much lower. I probably could have just, not had a microphone, not even like viewed myself, just recorded myself, and it would have been to the standard of the time. But the standard of the time only goes up. But I think the thing people miss with that is that you see like the top 1% with a lot of these things in most cases, that even my channel, if you go back, the quality has only improved. And maybe because I already had a background in video production a little bit, but I was very sloppy. That's something that whenever I go back, I think I had a mentality that YouTube is like kind of the junk food of video production. So I didn't really think about it. I didn't really put in the time and effort. And I think it really shows. I think it shows poorly on me as well. Like if I just spent a little, or if I was mindful of like kind of what's in the frame, if I like clean my screen or not, if the colors are even decent, stuff like that. Instead, I just thought, I just need to press record. I just need to get it done. I need to get it started. I just need to do it. And that's why I think that just do it approach is not necessarily the best for everyone, at least not for me. But because it's kind of I don't know what to say necessarily. It's what you want to show, that it's perfectly fine for someone to just do a selfie video if that lines up with what they're trying to do, their intentions. But I wanted to have something very high quality, yet I wasn't putting in the time and effort. So I had these like two different concepts. Like what I was thinking was very different from what I was actually doing. And I think that created a lot of friction. And now slowly I'm trying to bring them together and compromise on, both aspects of it. So it can't necessarily be my perfect vision, but also this can be closer to my perfect vision. And in that sense, maybe I'll be overall happier with the whole thing. I might not be like satisfied 100%, but hopefully the whole thing can be like healthier, more sustainable, and an overall better experience for both me and the viewers. So that's kind of what I'm aiming for now. And I haven't been doing as many videos because I've been working on other channels. I've been doing a lot of other video production work. So I can't like dedicate as much time to this, but I think, something like this, I can just turn it on, talk for an hour, 2 hours, and also get a lot of value from the, talking with people, but also hopefully helping people. So I think this could also be a future for the channel. And there's just a lot I want to do. Even looking at this computer, I'd love to do more videos on like building computers, because it's something I'm really interested in, but something I don't get that many opportunities to do. Like I've done a few for friends, but it's hard because I watch a lot of computer making videos on YouTube, but as like a more normal person, I guess, like it's, or, you know, it's hard to um, find a way to make it reasonable and sustainable for this channel, at least, I guess, at the moment. But like I said, maybe more photo tutorials, like the basics, and I don't know, it's the other thing that I find difficult when trying to add new types of videos to the channel is that, like, I think tech reviews is established and drawing related videos is established. So trying to add a new, like the interview, I think some people can appreciate, but a lot of people might not even, you know, click on it, or if they do, they might be disappointed because it's different than what I've done in the past, and it's something that I want to do more of, but I'm not sure if how like sustainable it'll be, or how what's the best way to do it, I guess. Even thinking about some of the videos I've made in the past, or the videos that I want to make, I often think, is video the correct format to put this out there? That a lot of the times text, like a blog post, would seem to be more effective. It could be turned around faster, and spending 10 times as much time on a video doesn't add 10 times as much value necessarily. So I think about that a lot as well. Would it be better for everyone overall if I turned some of my ideas into blog posts and then reserved the videos for formats that made more sense for them? At the same time, I think you could flip it around and say, well, if this is an underserved topic in a video format, so if lots of people make videos, if lots of people make blog entries, podcasts, whatever, you know, form of media on a certain topic, but the video portion is underserved, then maybe there is value in doing that so that people can find it and interact with it in a different way, learn and grow, and, you know, beneficial for a lot of people. But I also have to consider, you know, the amount of time that I have and the amount of time I could put into something. So all the time I'm considering these things and trying to find the right balance for it. Yeah. And I think the other thing that I thought about, that I never thought about in 2012 when I first considered starting a YouTube channel, but now I have so many ideas that I think even if I spent the rest of my life making videos from like that checklist, like if I had a checklist of all the video ideas I have today, at least in the way that I'm making them now, I don't know if I could get through all of them within a reasonable like lifespan. Not every single video has to be made. I think some of the ideas I have are just things that like I thought of in the moment, or sometimes they're time sensitive, so it's not a great metric, but I think, how can I put more out there? You know, how can I provide some more value with these ideas that I have instead of letting them kind of like rot in a folder, you know? Oh, thank you so much. Well, I'm glad I remember you on stream, but I didn't know that you found me over a stream, so maybe, you know, it's good to do more streams like that. And I do like this way that I find when I press record on a camera, I'm more nervous, even though I've taken steps to try to get better, even some behind the scenes on that now I'm using a teleprompter for a lot of my videos, so I have my script already decided, and I know exactly what I'm going to talk about. It's sped up production significantly. I think it helps me get across exactly the points I want to make. My worry is that it's very close to like a blog post. It's very close to how I would write a blog post. It might not fit in with the typical video experience that you might expect, that like what I think what's so great about video is having this kind of like more natural and more personal experience. But for whatever reason, when I turn on the camera and try to record something with a flow, I think about the editing. I think, oh, what was the last word I said? Is it going to connect with the next thing I'm going to say? And it's very difficult for me. Whereas something like this, once I get started, I don't feel as much pressure and I feel much more comfortable, and it's a fun thing for me to do. And whenever I do it, I do enjoy it, and I feel like I should do it more often, but for whatever reason, I haven't. The other thing I did, um, I took an acting class, and I think that also helped me kind of, you know, grow and be more presentable in front of the camera. But really, it's not easy to do all these different things that I thought, as someone that has background in photo and video, I'd be able to do this easier. But, you know, I'll look at the footage that I took and I'm like, oh man, the lighting's not that good, or the angle I really, it could have been much better. But trying to do it all yourself while also doing the things in front of the camera has been such a challenge at times. And I really respect anyone who's trying to do it. And I think it's something that it's easy for people to comment. I hear all kinds of different comments on my videos. But until you've actually done it yourself, I think it's very difficult to have that perspective. Like, it's easy to be the armchair person that's saying, oh, what if you did it like this? What if, it could just be better if it was like this. But until you've actually done it over and over again and know the places, like know that there are compromises, know that it's difficult to do it, those comments can be kind of frustrating. It's not necessarily hurtful, it's just frustrating. Because I want to say, like, you don't understand that, like, I only had, 40 minutes to do this, and I had to set up all my lights and the cameras, and it was a mess. But if I didn't do it today, then I probably wouldn't do this video at all. So when it comes to that kind of situation, what's the right answer? But I really hope to grow the channel, do more, and I don't know what that entails. If that means trying to hire someone to edit the videos so that I can put more videos out there, or is that going to be something that's like negative, actually, because maybe then it compromises the quality of it. Like I said, the teleprompter has sped up things significantly. The GPD, this is almost better than like a video editor, in a sense that I can take my work with me on the train wherever I go. And I'm going to talk about it with the GPD WinMax 2 video that I do, but these joysticks and this kind of format for video editing, at least like the base rough version of a YouTube video, is fantastic. And it's allowed me to make much more, whereas if I had to do it all on my desktop, only on my desktop, then I'd have less time to do it, put out less videos, do less stuff like this, and I don't know, I just want to do more stuff. Yeah, great. I mean, let me know, please let me know, and I'd love to watch. Like, I do want to have more of like a community feel for some of this stuff, and I think we could all bounce ideas off of each other for the streaming, because I also want to get started. But one of the things that I found difficult for this setup is I like my old Cintiq 13 HD, but it doesn't really work in this setup. I don't know if I should use my iPad, but then trying to stream the iPad screen on a Windows computer is a challenge. So I found different things that, it's until you actually get started, you think, oh, I have a computer, I have an iPad, whatever, it'll work. But the moment you say, I'm going to stream, and then you have it all in front of you and you try to piece it together, it doesn't always work out. It's a challenge, but, it's like a fun puzzle sometimes, and sometimes it's just frustrating. Yeah, I mean, like I said at the beginning of this video, or at the beginning of the stream, but as I've been switching my home office streaming video editing setup, I haven't always had my desktop on the table here. So sometimes I just plug this into my monitor that I have here with like, like a dock or whatever that has HDMI, or since it has HDMI, I could just plug it in. And it's been great, like, for all but my most intense work, it's been fine. And even I'm sure with my most intense work, if I had to edit a client's video and I made proxies, I could probably do it. The screen isn't going to be good for kind of more high-end work, but what I found, on the train, like the screen is really, really small. And that was actually one of the things that I was super disappointed about, because the marketing for, I'll just turn it on so that you can see the screen for reference, but the marketing that they had for the WinMax 2021 showed a much bigger screen than it actually was. And now with the WinMax 2, it seems like it's the size that they're representing on the marketing. So, it's a pretty small screen. What I'll do, let me see if I can bring up something. So what I tend to do is I'll have even a smaller picture than this though, but I'll just have the timeline with the levels, or not the levels, but it's not the waveform either. I forget the audio, and I'll just cut the audio, line everything up, and then kind of piling on the B-roll and everything else, and like transitions, all that. Maybe I'll do on a proper computer or when I hook it up to a monitor, but like this with joysticks, it's been fantastic for the rough edits. No problem. But if you go back, I talk a little bit about the new iPads as well as some GPD kind of news about the third generation now, I guess. But I'm interested in all of this stuff, and maybe streaming makes more sense because I can just talk about it as much as I want, kind of, and answer questions directly. That's one thing that, as much as I try, someone will always come up with a comment on something that I didn't even consider, and it's difficult to address. So, like, I can't necessarily make a video just to address a few people's concerns. Maybe if there's enough of them, I could make a follow-up video saying different things, but for the most part, like, what's frustrating about video in this form is that I can't like take it back. Once I put it out there, it's out there, and I really can't change it. So it really kind of like enables this perfectionist compulsion that I have, and so I find myself spending excess time trying to make something overly perfect, whereas there's probably a better like happy medium where it's still at a reasonable level. And like I said, I've gone back and forth. Sometimes I've just been sloppy and put stuff out as soon as I can because I thought that's what I needed, or sometimes I'm overly perfectionist. Yeah, I mean, the Switch is probably around here. I don't know, I've tried different like small form factor laptops and all, and this thing is just super cool. And I'm excited that the WinMax 2 has like a full SD card slot. What else does it have? I was talking about LTE, that I don't do much gaming, and for gaming, LTE, makes sense if you want to play like online multiplayer games, but for streaming out somewhere, you know, if I'm somewhere really interesting and I want to do like a stream, maybe an interview live, having LTE on something like this could be great, or just for video production, for publishing videos, for pulling B-roll off of a server or something. For me, I saw a lot of applications that I could talk about that maybe aren't being covered by other people, because one thing that I've talked about more in the comments, but not necessarily in videos, is that it's a shame that GPD doesn't market the WinMax series and some of their other devices as well to creative people, because I think that they're so powerful for that kind of application, that the hardware, and I've talked about this before too, that the hardware used for gaming can be often put to great use for creative software. And so for a long time before I was building computers, I was buying gaming computers because of that, because they just kind of lined up with what I needed. And that continues to this day with something like the WinMax series. But I think if they, even just a little bit of marketing, you know, on showing a timeline of a NLE on their website or something, and showing that it could be used for different applications, I don't know, even non-creative stuff, but showing a business person typing on it, because, you know, this thing is tiny with a full keyboard, and at least with the WinMax, it's pretty good for basic kind of word processing. If they showed more of that, I feel like you could get a bigger audience, maybe make more different products. And especially, it's just such a sleek device with no, you know, big branding. It's unique in the market now, I think. Yeah, I mean, I've used Photoshop on this. I've used Clip Studio. I've used Premiere, a little bit of After Effects, Paint Tool Sai. What else have I used? I mean, those are the main software that I use, so I haven't really experimented with too much else. But if you go back and look at, I think upon the release of the Mini, I think I did a stream where it was streamed off of this, because it has HDMI to USB-A to USB-C on the back here, and it has Ethernet. So, you know, if you can plug in several cameras, you can plug in power, you know, it has a microphone headphone jack, so you could do that as well. And 1 gigabyte Photoshop file. So I haven't necessarily tested a 1 gigabyte Photoshop file. On Clip Studio, my standard like 350 DPI, 100 plus layers on A4 canvas has worked. So if that kind of translates for you in any way, I mean, they only get better. The other thing that's going to be interesting is that this is an Intel-based GPD, whereas the one that I'm getting is AMD. And I think they only had, it was strange because at first I was going to pick up an Intel version of the WinMax 2, but then that got taken off the page. I wonder if they just canceled that version. It was, I think, an older chip versus the AMD version, but I have an AMD CPU in my desktop, but I have NVIDIA graphics card. And for Premiere, that seems to be, you know, or it's been a great combination for me. I've heard that AMD graphics cards are not really the best for like video encoding and stuff like that. And even now with Intel's Arc GPUs, it might be something interesting to try at some point on the channel. But I wonder how it's going to perform. I think they had also that if they put more benchmarks for like creative software, I think it would help you, and it would help me if GPD had some benchmarks for like Photoshop, I mean, kind of like the Adobe suite for DaVinci Resolve, for kind of those creative software. I'm going to pull up the page and we can look at it here. is they have one thing here for office work, but it looks like gaming. Like it doesn't really look like office work. And I think the application for office work could be handheld on its own, you know, as like more of a laptop. Because some of their devices are more like enterprise style devices. See, here they have the Intel 12th gen i7, but I don't think they offer that anymore. One other thing that I think could be interesting is the camera. I do, in some ways, appreciate the fact that um, the WinMax doesn't have. I mean, the WinMax original and like 2020 and 2021 models don't have cameras. If you know, for privacy or for um, certain people, that might make more sense. But because of its streaming capabilities and like how good it could be for video production and all of that, I think it's so smart to have a camera on something like this so that I could have maybe a top-down camera and it's, you know, it's not going to be a good face cam, but at least it's better than nothing for people that maybe just have one camera or they don't want to set up multiple cameras. Having it built in is going to be, I think, powerful for me. No, but I'm interested as well to look into because I haven't seen it in a little while. Yes, it doesn't, you know, they don't have kind of benchmarks on creative software. And not every, you know, you don't always get that with, or for the most part, you probably don't get that with the big players in like the laptop space. Unless it's their own software, maybe Apple will talk about how much faster it is with Final Cut or something. But I mean, even this page looks a little Apple-y. Yeah, see here they, or no, I don't know. I will have to do some research on the Intel version because when I went to go pick one up, it wasn't available. And I think, you know, on the AMD version is going to be fine. I think that the integrated GPU in this 6800U was pretty good when I looked into it. And considering the form factor, you know, it, even if you have a really good like, or is it, yeah, it's got to be integrated, but you're only going to get to go so far, I guess, with some of these devices. But the interesting thing is being able to then come home, plug it into something maybe a little bit more powerful, and splitting that balance. So I think maybe with the WinMax 2, I can kind of like put this aside for a little bit, see if I can completely do everything I need with this on a like portable, in a portable sense, as well as a homed like dock sense. But yeah, you know, if I get a chance next time I stream or whatever, we can open up Photoshop, kind of pile on a lot of stuff to make about a 1 gig file and see what the performance is like, especially when the next version comes out. I think it makes a lot more sense to do that in the next once I get hands-on with the WinMax 2. I guess it depends on what you're trying to do with a file like that. If you're trying to draw like in real time, like the difference between editing a photo where you don't need like a brush tool necessarily, or laying out, some page or something, it might not be as bad. But if you're trying to do brush strokes over time, I could see that lagging a little bit with a system like this. I'm not sure though. And it's been nice also with kind of it being the same size as a mini. I don't have my mini right here, but I do have the smart cover, and it's like exactly the same size. So if you carry around the mini and you use stuff like AstroPad or Easy Canvas, you could also draw with Photoshop, Paint Tool SI, all that kind of stuff on this device, but using the mini as a digitizer. Yeah, I think, it's pretty reasonable to think that you could do that with something like this. It's just whether 1 gig files, if your workflow actually can be handled by this or not, But as far as like the size and hardware and all that, I think you could. Just whether that workflow is applicable in this kind of device or not. But yeah, it's hard. I mean, I like having 2 devices, so say the iPad mini and the GPD, because they're both very good at certain tasks, and they are passable in the other tasks, in a sense that some basic productivity tasks, they can both handle it to varying degrees, but the mini is going to be so much better at just like a sketch on the train, or even, a full drawing at a cafe or something. But then the GPD is going to be much more effective for video editing. You have a lot of potential for productivity with Windows apps and all that. So, and they're easy enough to integrate. For me, I've always been interested in like a very small but powerful package, and this kind of takes care of that. But I think I'm gonna start to sign off for today. But I really enjoyed this, so I really appreciate talking. Let me know if you get started streaming. The mic that I use, like I said, is the Rode Video Micro, and it's been good for many years now. It works if you have the right cable. It comes with both cables, but it'll work with a phone that's kind of like a different standard or connector, and it'll also work with camera, computer, all that. You might want to pick up an extension cable for like the 35mm. 3.5mm. It plugs into the back, and then it'll plug into whatever device you're using. And as far as I could tell, within the like entry level, at least when I picked it up, now I think there's a lot more options actually from different manufacturers. But in the sub $100 price range, I believe, it's a pretty good value. Then as you go up from there, the quality will go up, and I'm at the point where I do want to invest in a higher quality microphone, so I gotta look into that as well. But thank you so much everyone for watching and talking, and I'm gonna do this more often, so I'll be back soon. Thank you so much.